Hello and welcome to Rough Diamond, our 3-minute video update for pension trustees and employers on what's being talked about by the pensions industry at the moment. If you'd like to know more about what we're going to talk about today, we've written a blog on it. You'll find the link to that blog on our website along with the link to this video. If we haven't answered all of your questions after that, then please feel free to email us at info@ptluk.com, and if we can help, we will. In this edition of Rough Diamond, we're going to be talking about value for money in DC pension schemes, a change in the law that's going to occur next year that will require you to assess value for money, and some of the things you can do now to be ready for that. During the course of this year, 2 consultation papers have been produced. The first was by the Financial Conduct Authority, or FCA. The FCA is going to require that there is a value for money assessment built into the governance mechanism for contract-based pension schemes. Contract-based pension schemes include group personal pension plans. The second consultation was one published by the Department of Work and Pensions, or DWP, in October. This requires trustees of DC schemes to consider good value. The regulations attached to both consultations will require this assessment to be carried out and then the findings of it to be disclosed in a report made public. What's not clear is what the difference is between value for money and good value. I'm told that the DWP had a debate about what term to use, and of course their consultation followed the original FCA consultation, and they deliberately chose not to use the phrase value for money. I don't know why. I don't know what's different between good value and value for money, but presumably that will all come out in the wash in due course. For the purposes of this Rough Diamond, I'm just going to talk about value for money because we all have a sense of what that means. The first problem with these 2 consultation documents is that they don't define what they mean by value for money or good value. They're not defined in the attaching regulations, they're not defined elsewhere in statute, they're not defined academically, and they're not defined by process. There is no definition that I can find of value for money. Now, we all have a sense of what value for money is, but of course that's the problem. It's a highly subjective sense and it's individual. And this creates a problem for me as a trustee because my subjective judgment will be different from the subjective judgment of the potentially hundreds of thousands of DC members that I'm responsible for. And if their judgment is different from mine, it could just lead to litigation. We at PTL are hoping that over the course of next year, the industry, the regulators, the legislators will get together and try and draw up some common value for money principles, or at least a common value for money process. What do we know about value for money? But we do know some things. Both consultation papers make it clear that value for money is a comparison of cost versus benefit. This is a significant step forward from the earlier quality standards requirement that just focused on cost. So it is a comparison of cost versus benefit. And they both also make it clear that it's not just the hard benefits like guarantees that we should count. We can also count, although I'm not quite sure how, some of the softer benefits, for example communication programs. They also both make it clear that the value for money test is an absolute test, but also a relative test. An absolute test is an assessment of whether that cost represents value for that benefit. A relative test is, does that cost compared to what the cost I would pay elsewhere look good value for that benefit? So using the purchase of a car as an analogy, I might determine that a car is a good price in one garage, but I can't decide whether it's a relatively good price until I look in the garage next door. So there will need to be an absolute and a relative comparison. And this also creates a problem because there's very little relative data out there. There's very little data for comparison out there. And what there is flawed. As I mentioned earlier on, the results of our value for money consideration will have to be published. And it's hoped, I think, by the regulators and the legislators that the mass of disclosed data will in due course allow the emergence of some relative data. We'll have to wait and see how that one shapes up. So what can you do in the meantime? Well, a few things. First of all, understand the charges that you are applying to members. it might be a good idea to just write up a schedule showing the different charges that apply to the different members. And if your employer contributes to the administration costs, or indeed covers all of the administration costs, don't forget the members are still paying investment costs. So cover those all in a written schedule, and then at least you know what you're charging them. Second thing is to try and start defining the services that are delivered. Some of those will be obvious, administration and investment. Some of them will be less obvious, communication, pre-retirement, support and so on. But if you start to think about it, and again write it down, then it gives you a working point. And thirdly, keep an eye on developments. We're hoping that value for money principles will emerge during the course of next year. And if they do emerge, then they'll be of help to you. So I'll try and keep you informed, but keep an eye out and see what's going on. Thanks for watching this episode of Rough Diamond. I hope it's useful and hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.